Today is Wednesday, April the 11th, 2012. I'm Matthew TG.
I'm Heath Mullican.
Hey, and I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. This is episode 152.
Woohoo!
Alrighty, so right at the start here, last week we talked about our giveaway. Just a second here, let me grab it. Ministry Velocity by Wayne Schmidt. He was our guest last week on the show. And so, Heath, tell our listeners what they can do to get this thing.
They can either tag the Techology Show on Facebook, they can like us on Facebook, or they can mention us on Twitter, or they can call 3049 Theology and leave us a voicemail. And those are the ways to enter. Right now we have about 17 entrants. And you can enter up to 3 times: Facebook, Twitter, voicemail. I encourage you to do that. And I'm a little bit depressed today because normally I am the best looking person in the studio, and sadly I'm coming in a distant third today.
A distant third. Oh, yeah, because we have the studio audience.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that leads us to our guests today. We have 2 people with us today. First is to my left here, Beth Peterson. Beth's parents and we're missionaries in Haiti, and Beth was born in Haiti. She's a 2004 graduate of Southern Wesleyan University, biology degree, assistant to the senior pastor at Alive Wesleyan Church. Beth has been married to Justin for 8 years, and together they have 2 children, Will, who's 5, and Sabrina, who's 4. Beth, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
And then, all the way from Scotland, it is great to have Aaron Dowds. And Aaron, before I read your bio here, it's already left my mind, and I don't want to mispronounce the town you're from in Scotland. So you go ahead right now and pronounce the town for us.
Dunfermline.
You did a great job with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron is married to a beautiful Scottish girl from Dundee. Lindsay, Louise Dowds. Together they have 4 children, a son, Caleb, who's now in heaven. They also have 3 children, Clara, 7, Kate, 4, and Judy, who's 6 months old. Aaron's a part-time associate pastor at Vine Church in the same town that he's from. His father is the senior pastor. Aaron is also a part-time pharmacist and works in a community pharmacy called the Cooperative Pharmacy. In addition, he serves as the Okipe fundraising task force leader. Aaron loves running, cycling, swimming, hiking, football, which we mispronounce as soccer, reading and traveling. He also enjoys cooking on occasion. His favorite food is Indian food. He also enjoys a really good cup of hot tea or coffee. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you lot today.
Yeah, and for those of you that are watching live, don't you love Aaron's hairstyle? I mean, that is just so good, man.
It's the best. It's so cheap as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, we're going to talk about orphanage in Haiti called Okipe, and the best way to do this is let's begin with a video, and then we're going to talk to Beth and Aaron about this project, a very worthwhile project.
My name is Nadelta. I am one of the children from the orphanage called Home of the Children of Jesus. I was 8 years old when I ended up here. Before I came to the orphanage, I had some hard times. Some days we didn't have enough to eat. Sometimes we would spend all of our money without eating anything, and then at night we would steal something, so it was very difficult at home for me.
Nadelta came to the orphanage when she was a little girl. The day I met her, her mother was crying in the street. She explained her situation to me, so I offered my help and took Nadelta into the orphanage.
I was very happy because it was the first day that Madame Soliette started with the orphanage. She had a feast and invited all the children to come.
It was very difficult at the beginning. I would often pray to God because it was He who planted the idea of starting the orphanage into my heart. I started with 20 children. Now I have 75. As you would expect, I do a lot to take care of 75 children. We don't always have money to pay ourselves as the orphanage staff, but I'm not discouraged because I enjoy what I do. I want this orphanage to be a success because I want my dream for the children to become a reality.
About 10 months after the massive earthquake in Haiti, I read an article about how many Haitian children had become vulnerable and exposed to trafficking, and that the earthquake had made orphans out of so many children. It wasn't long after I felt that I really had to go to Haiti myself and see what I could learn about how we could get involved in some meaningful way of reducing the exposure and the vulnerability of at least some of these children. In January of 2011 was the chance I got to meet Madame Soliette and the orphans that she takes care of. To that date, I had never met anybody like Madame Soliette that I felt embodied God's heart for orphans as she did with her life, the way that she's committed herself to these kids. She is, in my mind, the line of defense between these kids having a life of exposure and vulnerability and these 75 kids having a chance for a future and a hope because they've been loved and kept safe. It seems imperative to me that we help her succeed for that reason. From that point forward, it really came down to me gaining an understanding of what they were up against. What were the challenges that she faced? And when I saw the house that these kids were living in, it was a multiple story concrete construction, same kind of construction that was responsible for so many deaths in the earthquake. No running water, no electricity, 2 toilets in the whole house for adult staff and 75 kids, no outdoor space to play in that was proper. They have a makeshift kitchen in one of the rooms of the house where they have open fire so the walls are burnt, and it just became really apparent that their living conditions were the first thing we had to try to do something about. That's when we started to dream together with Madame Soliette and talk about what kind of housing would be really great. Talking about housing pods where 8 to 10 children would live with a house mom or a house parent, have more of a family feel, a school building, give the children more room to play, even have enough space for them to grow food to help them be more self-sustaining with regards to their food needs. Then we just started calling this project Children's Village because it had more to it than just housing. That very quickly turned into an opportunity to purchase nearly 4 acres.
I'm ready to be in the new orphanage because we will have a big yard to play in. I want to plant flowers, bright, beautiful ones.
The Children's Village, the dream for it is really more than about blocks and buildings. It has more to do with giving these kids an opportunity to experience a full life, having the appropriate outdoor space and the ability to learn some vocational skills for themselves as they grow older. The opportunity to have a great school environment. Madame Soliette's amazingly committed to their education. And really, if you start to talk to Madame Soliette about her vision for the kids, it has way more to do than surviving.
It is for that reason I live with them like a mother would. There is no difference between the orphans and my own children to me. They are all my children, and I want them to become good men and good women.
Okipe itself is a Haitian Creole word, and it means to look after, and it's inspired out of a few Bible verses that talk about pure religion before our Father is to look after orphans and widows. Okipe just captures the heart of that we want to help Madame Soliette look after these kids. It's just a relational cooperative. It's not a business, not a legal entity of any kind. It doesn't have a bank account or employees or assets. It's something that you really can get involved in, whether it's a $5 or $10 donation or a $5,000 or $10,000 donation. Whether it's bringing a team of people from your family or some group that you're involved in at home and coming to get involved in the construction, following along with the progress on the website. These are all ways that you can be a part of this project and know that your donation or your contribution as you get involved with us in Okipe is actually accomplishing what it is that you had in mind for it to accomplish. What's so exciting to me about this project is it's truly grassroots. One, you can take your family and go out and visit and see the progress. You can meet Madame Soliette and the kids. And I think that you should. I have done that. It's changed my life. And I know so many people have so enjoyed and appreciated being able to go there and be a part of that. We're looking for individuals to help spread the story and to get involved in the fundraising effort. On the website, there's actually a place you can go to, one of the tabs across the top of the page that says Grassroots. And when you look into that link, you'll see that we've provided some things to equip anybody who's interested in becoming a grassroots fundraiser. So I really want to encourage you to look into that. We've divided into two categories: project-related expenses, having to do with the Children's Village, and then operational related expenses. The operational related expenses are things like food and paying the rent for the house that they're in right now, providing medical treatment when they need it, and clothing and things of that nature. When you go to the website, it's called Join the Village, just because we really wanted to really identify with the needs of all 75 kids rather than just one over another.
This is the vision I have for the young ones, to bring change to the children of La Gonave.
I want to become a teacher, because in my country there are many children who do not know how to read or write.
With love, you truly can bring change.
All right. Before we talk about the orphanage, I wanted both of you to talk to us a little bit about how you got involved in the project. Aaron, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Beth.
Well, good morning. It's good afternoon here, but good morning over there. It's great to be on here today. Yeah, how I got involved in Haiti. Well, my brother's called Justin, and he was running a Christian music concert or festival in Scotland in our capital city called Edinburgh, called Frenzy. He was invited by a great international charity called Compassion to go and visit one of their local projects in Haiti. He finally accepted after 3 offers, and he went down not really knowing what to expect, and they took him to the island of La Gonave, and God did a big work in his heart there. He came away and knew that God had taken him to Haiti and placed certain dreams in his heart at that time. At that time, when he first visited Haiti, I was actually in Ireland with my dad, listening to a pastor from Phoenix, Arizona, called Pastor Tommy Barnett. He was actually speaking about seed faith, which was very interesting when I look back on it now. Shortly after that time in Ireland, I was speaking to my brother about his first trip to Haiti, and he detailed to me everything that he would he thinks that he could contribute and help to the island that he visited, and he felt that he was called to help with. And he talked about doing medical trips because the island is so poor that they can't get medical care. He talked about water installation programs, and he talked about a hospital which they're currently now building. And he asked if I would consider being the pharmacist on that trip, and I gratefully accepted, and that was back in May 2009. I went with my brother and a small medical team from Scotland, a couple of doctors, pharmacists. My brother's a pharmacist, and we had an incredible time. And we got to visit this orphanage on the island of La Gonave in May 2009. And I coped pretty well with everything that I saw in Haiti. But there was one experience that left me silent. I wasn't able to speak, and that was our visit to the orphanage on La Gonave. I wasn't silent because I was sad. I was deeply touched by the lives of these beautiful children. And there was one experience in that orphanage that really spoke to me and piqued my interest, and that was when the children were being vaccinated by our Scottish nurses. And prior to going to Haiti for the first time, I just had my young daughter, who at the time was about 4 or 5. She had just been vaccinated. I had accompanied her to the vaccination. She sat on my knee, got vaccinated, and I comforted her, etc. One experience was, as I was watching these children in La Gonave, these orphans, leave the room where they'd been vaccinated. One young girl, her name is Beth Sena, she came out crying, as children do, and she looked around and for for someone. And in that moment, I noticed that there was nobody to comfort this young girl. She was looking around. There was a few members of staff who were busy. All the children were preoccupied, and it really came home to me in that instant. There is what it really means to be an orphan. She had nobody to comfort her in her moment of need. So I took her into my arms and comforted her, and that was a beautiful moment. I was able to hold on to her. And so at that time, really, that's when my heart really went out to these orphans. That's how I got down to Haiti for the very first time, if you like.
Yeah, now, before Beth answers, it's interesting to me. You talk about the impression of, you said you handled everything, and then you got to the orphanage. And Matthew, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but when you came back from Haiti, and as you were telling the church the things that you did, I mean, the orphanage was high on your list. I mean, it just made a huge impression on you as well.
I don't think there's a way that it can't. If you went and saw, what it is, especially seeing what it is today and it's in its current state, there's no way you can't be affected by it. And what Aaron says is absolutely right. It's kids who die for affection. I mean, these kids don't know me, but we got to spend 2 days, with them, and just the fact that they'd come and just want to sit on your lap and sit close to you. Yeah. I remember I had one little girl sitting on my lap, and she kept taking my arm and wanted my arm, and would put it around her just to hold her. And that's, right. I mean, this is a kid that I'd never seen before. I'd never spoken with before. I'd never had any interaction with before. But there was that desire there, and makes me excited to be back.
All right, Beth. So how did you get involved with this project?
Well, it was February of 2008, and I was going through one of those just difficult times, and my husband said, why don't you go see your mom? I think he was trying to get rid of me. And so I jumped on a plane and went to visit my parents, and as part of that trip, we took a walk to this orphanage they had recently heard about, and went inside, and as everyone said, was just really moved by the kids, but also Madame Soliette, her wisdom, her just passion to fight for these kids, and her understanding of what it takes to care for children who have been orphaned and abused. And had one of those experiences where I was holding a little girl, and we were reading to her, and we had brought snacks for the kids, and she started crying. And I asked my mom to translate why she was crying, and she said that her stomach hurt. And it was because most of the children have parasites in their stomach, and when they eat, their stomachs hurt. And I was just blown away and asked my mom, well, can we get them medicine? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, how much is it? It's pennies. And, for us, no big deal. We went back and bought the medicine that day, but, realizing just the intensity at that point in the orphanage, in their story, the intensity of the need, that there wasn't really money for food. There wasn't money for medical attention. And it was one of those moments where God just speaks clearly to you that your life will never be the same, that what you just experienced will be a part of you forever. And I realized it was really almost a holy moment for me, that I felt so honored that God had even allowed me to be a part of this. And that hasn't wavered for me. They'll always be a part of who I am. Yeah.
Now, I know for you, the children of Haiti literally hits home. Why don't you tell our listeners about Will?
Yeah. Well, on that trip, I met a little 18-month-old boy. When I walked in the door, he was sitting in this huge chair, and he just looked so little, and he was so little. He was very ill. Madame Soliette had turned away babies. She said, I cannot take care of babies. I don't have the staff. I don't have the money. But a baby was brought to her, and she said, I'm sorry, I can't. Here's some money. Buy him some food. Wow. And Will's dad gave him to a little boy or a little girl in the alley and said, take him back to the orphanage. And then he disappeared. And so she had no choice. She had this 18-month-old. So on top of the regular kids, the school-age children, she now has a baby. And, obviously loved him, and he called her mom, but it was very difficult to care for a baby on top of that. And so I held him that day, and as I left, he called me mom, which he did for most of the women there, kind of, who is this person in my life? But it was a moving moment. And I really thought as I left, that was moving, as is a visit to any orphanage. But it will be a sweet memory, and I'll be able to care for him by just giving to the orphanage. But as I came back to the States, God just didn't let that happen. And I would find myself thinking about him just constantly. And so that was February. July of that year, we hired our attorney. And in January of 2010, because of the earthquake and where we were in the process, he was granted humanitarian parole, and then was able to come to the States, and then in July of 2011 legally became our son. Yeah. So he's a crazy 5-year-old boy now.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Beth or Aaron, tell us about some of the other great people who are currently serving on the committee for Okapi.
I can cover a couple of these, Aaron, if you want me to.
Please do.
Bill Cody is our chairperson, our fearless leader, amazing guy. And he's also the director of SHINE, which is a nonprofit humanitarian organization in the Bay Area of California.
Okay.
Trisha Alexander served in Haiti for 3 years with West Indies Self-Help. She's back in the States now, but she was an active part of the orphanage. Mm-hmm. My mom, Joy Irvin, is a part of that group, and is I would say, a dear friend to Madame Soliette and the kids.
I'm curious now, how did your mom, I know they're in Haiti, but how did she, get involved?
Yeah. They lived about a mile from the orphanage when they lived on La Gonave, and so they really didn't have any great funding to be able to just give the orphanage. So what they would do is they would take short-term mission teams and take them to orphanages, just let them see it. Yeah. And out of that, people would be moved, and that began a slow stream of support for the orphanage and a real friendship with Madame Soliette.
Yeah. And aren't some of the work teams there's Wesleyan work teams that are helping with the orphanage now?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few Wesleyans, a lot of Wesleyans in Canada, actually.
Okay.
And then all our great Scots and Brits, and we've got a Lutheran church in Minnesota.
It's so cool.
Great network in California. So.
Yeah.
A couple other people, Brooke and Mackenzie, are 2 college students. They're at Penn State, and they started in high school doing a senior project, raise money for the orphanage, and it's been a few years now and are still a part of that. And then we have some UKers that Aaron can tell you about.
Yes, we have Lou, which is one of our Scottish nurses, and she's been, I think, the last 4 years to vaccinate thousands of children on the island, and they were thoroughly impacted by the orphanage, the Scottish nurses, and the poorhouse, and they set up their own charity called Haiti Help, which actually in Scotland Haiti is kind of slang for have to, so Haiti Help is kind of like have to help. There's a bit of Scottish slang there, which is quite clever. But yeah, sorry, turn that off. Yeah. So she's involved, and they raise lots of money for this orphanage and for the poorhouse, and incredible. Our Scottish nurses are amazing.
One more person I can't forget, I'd be in trouble. Matt Smith is our liaison that actually lives in Haiti and works on a day-to-day basis, and he's another great Californian.
Yeah, it's great here. One of the things I wanted our listeners and viewers to understand is that everyone that serves on this committee has been there. They have formed relationships, and this really is a labor of love for you guys. You're not getting paid for this or anything like that. All right, let's jump in and let's talk now about the new building, the present project, to give us a sense of where we are in the project and the timeline moving forward. Either one of you here can jump in.
Sure, yeah. Well, so far we've completed phase 1. A lot has already happened. It's so exciting. So much has already been accomplished in such a short space of time. Phase 1 is complete, and basically that means together we've managed to purchase 4 acres of land. As I'm detailing this, what really strikes me, what amazes me, is how God has just brought all these things together. We can in the natural look at this and say, look at the goodness of man, but for me it just really highlights the goodness, the providence, the power of God to make all these things happen. to make all the circumstances happen. So even the purchasing of the land was miraculous. There's so many apparently ordinary, but really they're miraculous. We've also managed, when I say we, the Haitians have built a security perimeter wall around this 4 acres of land. That included 10,000 blocks. That was equivalent of 50,000 US dollars to build the wall. The land was 19,000 US dollars. Water has been welled. There's safe drinking water available on the land just now. That was the equivalent of 40,000 US dollars. One incredible breakthrough was the coming on board of Extolo. Now, they came on board last year, and Extolo is a non-profit organization in the Silicon Valley area, and their real goal is to develop and train a Haitian construction labor force. And it started in March 2010 after the bad earthquake by the founder Sherman D. Balch, I think is how you pronounce it. And Extolo is Latin for build up. And his vision, he really felt after visiting Haiti that his expertise was in construction, building and development, and he wanted to use that to help rebuild Haiti, schools, orphanages, churches. But his real dream and desire was to leave a legacy and equip, not just, do the work for the Haitians, but to equip them to do the actual work themselves. Now, they've come on board with this particular orphanage, and their goals are absolutely phenomenal. For example, let me just, if you would allow me a couple of minutes, just to show you some of their goals, because it shows that this vision is more than just building a village, and it's got so many implications. For example, they're training 54 students through 54 local young Haitian students through vocational training. They hire these students and they give them on-the-job training and skill development, and their goal is that they'll have a minimum number of students, and I'll show you what the numbers are, but they'll receive a level 1 certificate. So we'll have 20 students that will get a certificate in concrete and masonry training, 8 students in plumbing training, 10 students with carpentry and concrete training, 8 students with painting training. They'll also identify those with a particular entrepreneurial flair, and they'll help them to start their own businesses, or kind of like micro-enterprise, and they'll support them with that. So when the orphanage is done and dusted, they're believing for at least 6 different skills and different students that have learned and acquired these skills to then use them to rebuild Haiti itself. And for me, that's just what a great vision, and to be involved with that. So getting them on board is a key breakthrough, which leads us into phase 2. Phase 1's complete. Phase 2, which is what we're in at the moment, and basically phase 2 is the minimum development to basically get the 73 children out of their existing building and into this children's village. So that includes the building of 10 housing units. Each housing unit will be able to house 10 children with one mother. It includes a multi-purpose building which will cover initially kitchen, storage, bathrooms, laundry, temporary school classrooms. It includes a guard station building and an 1,800 square foot gazebo, which will be used to hold the solar panels that will power the children's village. And it also includes site developments, water, sewerage, solar power supply, etc. In terms of the finances for phase 2, just very quickly and briefly give you just an update on where we are. The solar power was budgeted at $115,000. Now, incredibly, another breakthrough is somebody called Solar for Peace came on board, and they've actually secured the donation of $55,000 worth of solar panels.
Wow.
And Solar Peace have actually confirmed that they are intent on raising the rest of the budget to cover the $115,000 for the solar panels. So that's another incredible breakthrough. The structures, which is everything I've just mentioned, the 10 housing units, the multi-purpose building, the budget's coming in at $475,000 for that. The budget for one house, building one house to house 10 children, is coming in at $32,000. And also the budget for the site development, for example, the septic tank, water collection systems, electrics, etc., is $125,000. So basically, to summarize, the total budget for phase 2 is $597,000. Since September 2011 till now, we've managed to raise $200,000.
Okay.
So the outstanding figure still to raise to complete phase 2 is in the region of $397,000, which is incredible, really, when we think how many houses you could build in America or Scotland for that amount of money, and we can complete a children's village for $397,000. And we'll tell you later about matched funding that we've received to help us significantly towards that. So hopefully that gives you a very brief overview of where we're at in phase 2.
I know now you all can inform me better, but I know that electricity is an issue in Haiti in terms of just its reliability. And I would assume, and I'm just assuming here, that this is why the solar aspect of this is so important, in a sense that the facility itself will be self-sustaining for its electricity. Am I right about that?
Beth, would you like to comment?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, electricity is just not something that even most of the residents in the city of Ensangalé even have, and you're dependent on a power grid that's up and down, and so exactly, solar makes them less susceptible to anything that happens in the community. They have their own source of power, and as far as cost, she's not going to have to pay for fuel for a generator. It makes them self-sustaining and lowers cost as well.
Very good. Let's move along here. Anything you want to add in terms of where we are in the project right now?
I think Aaron covered it. I think that I'd echo just what an incredible miracle it's been. People doing grassroots fundraisers, little gifts, big gifts. That's why we've gotten to where we are today. So it's really God's favor.
Yeah.
One of the questions in the chat room is, when you talk about $397, what's the goal as far as number of houses and number of children that would be able to be cared for in the village that's being built? Any idea what that number could be?
Well, the phase 2 is to rehouse the 73 children. So this will include 10 houses. That will be able to house 80 children. So that's phase 2.
Okay.
There will be further phases which would be able to double the capacity.
Right.
So there's enough land to probably go up to 150 children.
Okay.
At some point in the future. Madame Soleil has to turn away children just to do with capacity and funding. So the initial priority is to get these children out of the existing building, because it's one of these concrete buildings that proved in the earthquake to be unsafe. So the initial phase is to get them out, and then it can be developed in further phases, which again is it's great to have the capacity and the space to be able to do that.
You mentioned Madame Soleil, who is in the video. What would the lives of these children be like right now without her intervention?
Well, the lives of these kids, it's a pretty hopeless situation if you think about it. They would be dependent on the community that's already taxed by poverty. A lot of them are at risk to end up as street children. One of the reasons she started this orphanage is that she's from Ensangalé on La Gonave, but was living in Port-au-Prince, and was seeing kids from her own community get on the public ferry and end up as street children in Port-au-Prince. And so there is really, it's a very hopeless situation without intervention. Yeah. Half of the children in Haiti get to go to school. 2% finish high school. So, education, healthcare, things like that would be not at all a possibility. And I think what's incredible is ultimately hope for any of us is the love and the redemption of God. And for these kids, Madame Soleil and her workers are that. And that they get to meet a God who's already asked to adopt them. And that's what we have in common with them. But without her intervention specifically, these kids go from having no hope to having education and even though these kids have come from such destitute situations, every night she gets together. They have devotions, which really is a mini church service, but she stays up later with the older kids, and she asks them questions like, what do you want to be? And they say, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an agronome, an agriculturalist. She's given these kids permission to dream big dreams, which is something that is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the intervention.
Also, too, I mean, issues of, I'm no expert here, but you would think issues of self-worth, I mean, to have someone who cares for you at the end of the day, cares about your plight and what's going to happen to you in the future. I mean, from just a psychological point of view, that has to mean the world.
It is.
To those who are there.
A big issue in Haiti is household slavery, really, is taking in children, as you take in a child that becomes your household slave. And especially for girls, the incidence of sexual abuse and rape and even prostitution, that's one of the things that these kids would look for and would expect at least they would be fed. And so what you're saying, having someone that believes in you, that gave you a second chance, that gave you a home, is such a powerful thing.
Yeah. There are actually a couple different groups that have documented that household slavery stuff. Just to give people a little bit more idea about what all that involves. I think you can find a couple short format films like on YouTube if you're just to kind of search that out, and there's a few people who have gone and talked with some of the kids who serve as household slaves, and it's absolutely incredible. Just to see that and realize, wow. And
it's so foreign to our context.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. That's why I don't talk during the show.
I read a book written by a former I think they call them Restavik, which is one of these child slaves in Haiti. And I read a book written by one of them who actually went on to do very well. But yeah, it's hard to believe and imagine today's age, and that such things still go on in what is Haiti, a very short distance from Miami, or within a short air flight from the U.S. and child slavery being such a huge problem, but yeah, it's phenomenal, and the difference that, as Beth so well explained, that these children are rescued and defended from that, and given opportunity to really, I think part of the big picture is really not just to rehouse these children, but to really raise them up as the future leaders to transform their cultures, to become the solution to their problems. And so when we were out there, one of the HIV consultants on the island was a former sponsored child for a charity called Compassion. And for me, that just says it all. It's of those 73 orphans, the potential, the intellect, the skills, the abilities, the talents that are in there that just need to be released and fed back into their communities is just tremendous. And so for me, that's the exciting part as well. It's not just giving them a house, which is very important, and a love, but it's creating an opportunity so that they can become the solution to their problems as well.
One of the people that we mentioned 3 or 4 weeks ago when we were talking about Haiti was the Giles. What's his first?
Carl and Maya.
Yeah,
Carl.
We have such respect. I mean, some of our listeners know who we're talking about. Carl, who was raised in Haiti, came here to the States, got an education, and has gone back. And there are so many Haitians who want an opportunity to leave, and that's what they do. They leave and they never go back. And the respect level that we have for Carl is just out the roof, because his dream was to go back. I'm leaving temporarily. I'm going back. And certainly part of the solution of Haiti is their own people who take a hold and really begin to try to make a difference in their own homeland. So,
the incredible thing you mentioned about Carol, I don't know if you remember, and when I was telling you how I first got introduced to the orphanage, well, there was one girl that really particularly touched my heart, and her name was Beth Sena. And I spent 10 minutes with her. She was the girl that came out after being vaccinated.
Yeah.
She had tears in her eyes. And I remember spending about half an hour for this girl, praying with her and, being touched by her. I remember praying for her afterwards also. It was about just earlier on this year that I got an email from Carl and Maya to tell us, because they had just found out the story and the picture of me with this little girl, to inform me that they've actually adopted this little girl. And they sent me the photos of the very girl that, really, I think, did a work in my heart and led me to get involved with this.
I got to meet Bethsana while we were there last in January. So we stayed, we had a day layover basically at the Jill's house, and she's an impressive little girl.
Amazing.
Okay, now we've talked about a lot of people here. I just wonder, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity, if there are any unsung heroes that maybe need to be mentioned, people that have made impressions on you that you want to give a shout out to.
I have a couple, actually, and there are people on the island of Lagunov. There's a man named Frere Prophet, and he's a Christian businessman that owns a hardware store and regularly gives a 50-pound bag of rice, which is a huge sacrifice. And Lagunov, there's 3 mayors on Lagunov, and one of them is named Magister Adam, incredible, the tallest and happiest Haitian man I've ever met in my life. But he has been such an incredible advocate and a voice, and in a land where many politicians don't always care about their constituents, he has been such an incredible giver to the orphanage. And the other one I would say is, the incredible amount of short-term teams who have gone down, have given their time and money, and who have come home and just passionately shared the story of these children to get somebody to listen, to get somebody to care. The grandmas who give $20 here and there, businessmen who have donated funds. It really is this network of people that don't get a lot of glitz and glamour, but who are making an eternal difference in the lives of these kids.
Yeah. Anyone you want to give a shout out to, Aaron?
Well, the one that stands out for me is Beth's mum and dad. I mean, they're great heroes of mine. The sacrifice that they made to go down there, and it's no doubt to me whatsoever that it's prayers of faithful people like them over many years that have been heard, and we're seeing the answer to these today. I mean, when I first went to Haiti, I thought, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to learn what does sacrifice really mean. I don't think I'd fully understood it, and I still don't. But I learned that from Beth's mum and dad, Pastor Dan and Joy Irvin, and they're great heroes of mine. And they may or may not appear on the front of glossy magazines, but in the eternal glossy magazine, they're right up there on the front cover, I reckon. So.
Oh, that's good. How many years have your parents been involved in work in Haiti?
They were there for 6 years in the 80s and are going on their 5th year that they've been there now, so went back again.
Yeah.
So.
That's great.
We've talked a lot about the needs of Okipi. What are some ways that our listeners can get involved with this project, whether it's through finding out about per request, but also giving financially? What's the easiest and the quickest way for people to do that?
There's probably a couple of things, and it is all detailed quite clearly on the www.okipe.org website. I'll maybe mention one, and then I can maybe ask Beth if she would maybe mention something called Grassroots, and also about students donating books is one great way to help, and donations. Something that somebody can do is actually join the village, and if you go to the website okipe.org and then sponsorship tab along the top, there's something called Join the Village, and basically Join the Village is giving these children, it's the monthly amount of money that Madame Solier requires to adequately give these children sufficient food, clean water and clothes, also to be able to give them life-saving vaccines and basic medical care, also to be able to give them primary and secondary education, and obviously loving adult supervision. That's what sponsorship covers. And currently, Madame Soulier is struggling to be able to do that adequately at the moment. The best figure that we've able to come up with of how much money she requires to cover everything that I've just said on a month-to-month basis, about $6,000 would adequately cover how many children she has at the moment. We reckon she's receiving at the moment about $4,850, which is incredible, actually. There's a lot of generous people out there, and thank you to everybody that does and has done for years, given generously to these children. It's incredible. But there's still about a shortage of about $1,150 per month. Join the Village is a sponsorship. It's different from the one-on-one child sponsorship. Ours is called Join the Village. So you can give any amount from as little as $10 to as much as you're able. And your money doesn't benefit one child, it benefits the whole village. It benefits all the children, all their needs. And it's called Join the Village, partly from the old African proverb, which says it takes a village to raise a child. And so we believe that the money goes into the whole village, and it can help in that way. It's detailed on the website under the tab sponsorship. And maybe I could ask, that's one way, I'll maybe hand over to Beth and she could maybe detail about the perhaps the student books or the grassroots.
Yeah. There's a spot on the website for grassroots, and there's a place where people can set up their own websites to collect donations. So people have run marathons, whatever. If you want to grow a beard and have people sponsor you, I mean, whatever you want to do, get creative. But the others, we have incredible partnership with Tree of Life Books, which is a Christian bookstore, and they've made a way where you just put in the code of your book, you print out a free shipping label, they will give all the money from that book plus a 10% tithe straight to Okipe. So it literally costs you absolutely nothing. And we love for some college students, I think some SWU students are actually going to do this just to do a book drive on their campuses. We know college students don't have a lot of cash floating around. So this is a great way. Students and just people in their own homes go through books and see what you'd like to give.
Yeah. And now talk about right now currently in terms of giving to the building of the new orphanage. I understand there's a matching funds thing going on right now. Tell our listeners about that.
Absolutely, yeah. One very generous church in California has offered matched funding up to the amount of $100,000. So anything that is given to the Phase 2 building projects, which you can go to okipe.org and donate, and you can donate any amount to help us achieve. As I said, we've got about $397,000 that we still need to raise, and the goal is to get them onto this village by the end of this year. So anything you give today, up to the end of April actually, will be doubled. So if you give $10 today, that will be matched, and Okipe will benefit. $20, give $100, it'll be matched to $200. So it's a very generous offer, and we're all working hard, raising money just now. All sorts of things happening all over the world in different countries and different places. Very exciting, but yeah, if people are able to give any amount today, however small, however big, it will be doubled. Your donation will be doubled, and you can give right now at okipe.org. Just go to the donate tab, and it's all fully explained there.
All righty. Our show, we've just started signing up sponsorships, things and like that. We have a modest income, but one of the things that we talked about last week is that this is a project we believe in and want to get behind, and so we want to be faithful from the show's point of view to tithe whatever we bring in, and so this is the project we're going to give to. And we really, the reason we have Aaron and Beth on is we want to encourage our viewers, our listeners, to get involved with this project. We're putting some skin in the game. This really is worthwhile. And really encourage not only the financial giving, but if you get a chance to go to Haiti. We've had Joan Rampy on the show 2-3 weeks ago. You can look at that episode. She talked about it. Matthew You'll be going in how many weeks now?
Oh, I don't remember.
3-4 weeks
yeah,
from
not
now.
long.
May 8th.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
I'm glad
Beth knows when he's
Beth's more
going.
organized about the
We
trip
need
that she's
women
not going
for
on.
dates. We do.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm excited about is Matthew's going with a double intent here. Number one is he's going to be part of this team, but also to take a team out of the church where he pastors early part of 2013, which I'm really excited about. So I'll take this. This is really cool because in the adult Bible study, I'll just simply take this episode and they'll watch it.
That's so nice. You're ready for that. That's great.
We appreciate you guys doing that's really an incredible and generous offer.
Yeah, well, we're happy to do it and great to get behind a project that is worthwhile.
I want to speak for the website one more time.
Sure.
I guess it's Matt who keeps stuff updated and puts pictures and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Matt Smith.
Wow. Does a fantastic job.
He
He's
does.
like 2 or 3 times a week there'll be stuff up there, and it keeps you really excited as you watch. I mean, I've just been watching over the past month as, I mean, literally stuff is just rising up out of the ground from nothing.
Yeah.
It's turning into, and you're starting to see what stuff's going to be like. And he's a great photographer, takes great pictures, and writes really well about what's happening. So another double intent. Go to the website, donate, but also if you use like an RSS reader or something like that, subscribe to that thing so you can get those updates because it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a real quick question about the orphanage. I know it's on the island of Loganov, which is where the Wesleyan compound is. Any idea the distance between the two?
It's only, the orphanage right now is only a couple miles. And Aaron, do you know how far it is to the new property from the compound?
Just from recollection from my travels there last year when they pointed out the land, my thoughts were it's opposite the airstrip,
Yeah.
which is very close to the compound itself, isn't it?
Maybe about 10 minutes.
Sure.
wow.
So I think it's just as far as my memory. It's just opposite the airstrip, which is an experience in itself.
Maybe what I should
When
do
he says
Loganov Airport.
airstrip, he means airstrip.
I should put like something that would link people on Google Maps because you can actually
That's a
see on
good
Google
idea.
Earth, you can see where the airstrip is and then kind of get an idea. It's not an updated
That'd be
picture,
good.
but right across you can see just this big kind of greenish area, and that's the property.
Yeah.
All right, here. Well, before we say our goodbyes, let's quick go to the book giveaway.
Yes, we have a winner chicken dinner, and the winner is our very own Nashville pastor, David Gould.
All right.
Is the winner of Ministry Velocity, and David's also the co-host of the Good Morning Show in Tennessee, so he's able to listen to our show after he is done
Good.
with his. So I'll be getting his address and sending him a copy.
Yeah, if he gets that out to us right away, we'll get that out today
Yep.
and get it to him. Congratulations. Also, real quick, we are the Techology Show. We love tech, and some of you out there are Mac users, and so we
Update your Java. Update it now.
Yeah.
we hate to say this, but there are viruses out there for your Mac. Here's what we've done. Matthew helped me this morning really quick, put me onto a couple links. So we have linked to our show notes for you just a place to go test and make sure that your Mac is clean. Make sure you don't have this virus.
There is one going around right now that is pretty big. It's got, I think the last statistic from last week was something around 600,000 Macs, and half of those are ones in the United States. So definitely, if you're running a Mac, check your machine using this little tool. Be sure to run system update. There is a patch that's come out. So either way, I mean, you can just run system update and not even run the check, and it'll patch whatever's there. But be careful. Don't be a part of a botnet because they're used for evil purposes.
Alrighty.
Fight
All right.
for good.
And the
Go ahead.
last thing is, don't forget, I'm wearing my Blue Like Jazz movie shirt today. The movie opens this weekend, Friday the 13th. Go see it this weekend. It's a great movie. TG and I loved it. Read the book. And all Christian movies, if you go see them on the first weekend, it helps with the
Keeping it-
promotion.
yeah,
it helps
keeping
keeps
it
it
in
in
the
theater
theater.
and gets it in
Yeah.
more theaters. So wherever you live, go.
And
see that.
shameless plug here, Heath and Matthew went over to Greenville, or Anderson, when they had a preview of that, had an opportunity to interview Donald Miller and the producer of the movie.
Yep,
Stephen
Steve
Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah, so check that episode out.
And if you haven't read, I read the book, Donald Miller's book, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years after I saw the movie, and that book is about the process of them making the movie.
Okay.
It is just a it's been a life-changing book for me. I read it about 2 months ago, and that ironically coincides with me running and exercising and getting my life together.
And so in 1,000 years, you'll have run 1,000,000 miles.
I've run almost 100 kilometers. Does that count?
I love it. All right. Hey, Aaron, thanks so much for joining us
bro.
today.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed my time with you guys.
Yeah, this has been a treat.
Thank you,
I hope in God's providence that our paths are going to cross and we can
have a cup of tea together.
Have a cup of tea
Yes.
together. Get a good
Wonderful.
picture. We'll shine
Rub
our
each other's heads, yeah.
and get a great picture.
Aaron, I apologize in advance, but for some people in the chat room and for me, can you just say, they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? Can you just say that real quick? That would make my day.
They may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom.
Thank you very much.
That's crazy. All right, and Beth, thanks so much.
Oh,
It's
thanks
great
for
having you in
having
studio.
us.
Beth is, she's one of our favorite people in the district. It's been a pleasure to work with her. She's actually in the process of ordination in the Wesleyan Church and has to answer to me. And
I do.
Despite the problems we've had with you, it really has been delightful.
It's been incredible. Thank you so much.
All righty. Let me remind all of our listeners what's coming up on April the 25th. Let me grab this real quick. Mark Wilson's going to be with us. His new book is out, Filled Up, Poured Out, and we'll be giving away a copy of that book, so join us for that. Many of you know Mark Wilson, great guy. May the 2nd, Dr. Bob Bagley will be with us, joining us from South Africa. Going to talk a little bit about Coney 2012. He wrote a great article about that,
Yes.
and in that article kind of talked about the context of what they've been living with the whole time he's had ministry there, and I think you're going to find that really informative. We are in the process of moving things around. May the 9th, we will not have a podcast. I explained.
Because guess what? I'll be in Haiti. I mean,
That's right. That's right. And it used to be that I could run the show without Matthew, but it has gotten so technical. And let me just say real quick, TG is doing a great job with all producing this show, and just exponentially, it just gets better and better. And so huge thanks to him and all the time he's put into this. The week of June the 2nd through the 6th, we will not have a show per se. We will have many shows. We are going to be at General Conference. Right. Also, we are going to be live streaming the prequel.
The prequel, right.
Yeah. Some of you are familiar with the name of Dr. Don Dayton, wrote a book, Discovering an Evangelical Heritage, rocked my world in college, and we're going to be giving away a copy of that book as we get close to the General Conference. We're going to be doing interviews. We are going to have a panel of people.
Yes.
Color
commentary.
There you go, man. So after a business session, Dr. Keith Drury, his son David Drury, Heath, Steven Sheets, Matthew will be producing, and we'll have other people coming in and out. Yeah. Really looking forward to that.
If you're not there at General Conference, basically we want to be General Conference for you. We want to bring it to you and let you have kind of the experience.
At least
without having to travel.
At least our warped version of the experience.
Yes.
All right. As always, if you want to do any further research on what we discussed today, you can check us out at thetechnologyshow.com. With this episode, we encourage you to show this to people, download it, get it out there, and get the word out about Okipe and the present project that's going on. If you want to contact us, you can send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail by calling us at 3049-THEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave us a message. We may even play your comments on the air. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.
You guys rock.
Yes, it worked. Whoa, this is going fast.
What?
What in the world? What was that?
I guess we weren't ready.
I guess we weren't. Look at that. That's not a second countdown.